What good is all this science and engineering that you're doing if you cannot communicate it to the world? There are many, many avenues to contribute to quantum computing.
My advice for networking would be to kind of lean on the network you already have, just to open the door into your first experiences, and then your network just naturally grows from there.
Hi, I'm Olivia, and welcome back to another episode of Crosstalk. Today I'm going to be sitting down and interviewing a former intern turned full-time employee at IBM and another current intern. And we're going to be discussing internships, a little bit about graduate school, a little bit about how to pick what type of degree is suitable for you based on if you want to work in industry, academia. We go over a lot of different things in this episode, but stick around. I think this will be a really helpful episode for people who are not exactly sure what they want to do next in their career, but they know that they are interested in quantum computing or technology. So join us in just a minute. I'm going to have Ari and Abigail. Ari, Abigail, thank you so much for joining us in the studio today. Do you want to begin by just briefly introducing yourselves?
Yeah, sure. My name is Ari Noori, and I'm a quantum hardware engineer here at IBM Quantum, where I work on scaling qubit control systems so that we can build larger and more practical quantum computers. So I did my bachelor's degree in computer engineering and my master's degree in electrical engineering at the University of Wisconsin. And throughout my educational journey, I'd actually interned twice at IBM Quantum, once in Rochester, Minnesota, working on room temperature control electronics, and another time here in New York working on quantum signal delivery to the qubit chips.
Awesome. And yourself, Abigail?
Yeah, my name is Abigail McClain Gomez. I'm currently a PhD student at Harvard, where I'm getting my PhD in physics. And this summer, I'm working as a quantum research intern here at IBM.
Awesome, thank you. So I know there's a whole bunch of different stuff that we want to talk about today, but maybe the first question I'll ask, just to get the ball rolling, is how did you both become interested first in interning at IBM?
Yeah, that's a good question. And for me, I think it goes all the way back to my high school physics class, where towards the end of the year, we started learning a little bit about quantum mechanics and some of the use cases of quantum mechanics, and quantum computing came up. And at the time, as a little high schooler, I got very excited about quantum computing because it seemed like it would have a great impact on the world eventually. And as I was kind of going into college and trying to understand what I wanted to do with my life, I came to realize that I wanted to work on something that ultimately would have a positive impact on the world somehow. And as I started doing more research, learning a little bit about quantum on my own, it was very clear to me that IBM kind of was the leader in the space. They were spearheading a lot of things in the space. And so to me, it seemed like a logical move to try to get an internship at IBM, because I knew that, one, the people there would be incredible and I could learn a lot from them, but two, it would be a monumental step in trying to build my career in the quantum space ultimately.
Mm-hmm. And how did you first hear about internships at IBM and think, hey, that's something that I might want to go try and do?
Yeah, so a few of my peers at Harvard actually have interned here before. Okay. And I think also just going through grad school, going to various physics conferences and seeing how strong of a presence IBM Quantum has at these conferences, that was also really nice to see. And yeah, I just wanted to get some experience in industry, as they call it, in academia. And so I thought IBM would be a good fit.
We'll come back to that part that you just mentioned in a minute about the differences in academia versus industry. But why don't we keep talking a little bit about the internship process for right now? So when you were applying, I think a lot of people want to know what that was like. Like, how was the interview process? How long did it take? When did you apply? Maybe some more logistical things.
Yeah, sure. So my interview process to actually getting my first internship 2 summers ago at IBM was a little bit non-standard, and it kind of all started with what's called a virtual career fair that my university hosts. And basically what that is just the university invites a bunch of companies to come in, and students can sign up for a time slot to speak one-on-one with somebody from whatever company.
Like a representative.
Yeah, a representative of the company. So IBM happened to be one of those companies that was at that career fair. So I said, I'll just give it a shot. Let's see what happens. Yeah. So I signed up for the one-on-one slot, and spoiler alert, I ended up getting matched with somebody who would eventually become my manager at my first internship. Gotcha. And so in that kind of one-on-one, which was only 10 minutes, but was effectively like an interview, a very short interview, we mainly talked about, some of the skills that I had started developing throughout my coursework and throughout some of the research that I was doing at my university. And then I really told him a lot about my passion for quantum and, wanting to get involved in the quantum space. And it just so happened that this guy was a manager of, quantum control systems at Rochester, Minnesota. And he's like, yeah, I like that guy. So I ended up getting, of all things, a text message from him. It was like, hey, do you want to work at IBM this summer? And I was like, yes, of course, I would love to work at IBM this summer. So.
And this, just to clarify, this was when you had already started your master's?
No, so I was, actually, this was probably September, October of my junior year of undergrad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so basically what happened is I did an internship the summer of my junior year. Gotcha. And then I graduated early from my undergrad, started my master's early. And then the summer in between some of the semesters of my master's degree, I did my second IBM internship in New York.
Got it.
So how I got that internship in New York was basically, I had a wonderful time in Rochester, Minnesota, and I told my manager, hey, I want to get more involved, a little bit closer to some of the qubits, some of the real quantum machines. And he was like, I love that idea, right? So he talked to a bunch of people here in Yorktown, and we were able to find a good match for me the following summer. So I came back to Yorktown the following summer, came back to IBM, and really enjoyed it, and people were happy with my work. And so what I did was I wanted to find kind of where I could fit into the IBM Quantum ecosystem, like what made sense based on my skills, my interests, and the needs of the people at IBM. Mm-hmm. So what I did was I just talked to a bunch of people and tried to understand what they work on and tried to understand the things that they would need help with from somebody, right? So one of the people that I was speaking to was somebody who eventually became my manager, who's my manager now, and I spoke to a lot of other people on his team, and essentially, him and I, we kind of understood where I could help his team, and we also saw that it was a wonderful mutual fit based on what I was interested in and what work that he needed done in his team, and ended up working out, and I got a full-time offer, and here I am now, sitting here.
Right.
So I guess maybe to wrap up the whole story, the key point is I think networking and try to talk to somebody one-on-one, or at least face-to-face, is really key here.
Yeah.
And I think that had I not joined that, I know for a fact actually, if I did not join that one-on-one session with IBM many moons ago.
Yeah, who knows what would have happened.
I would definitely not be sitting here.
Yeah. Let's come back to that in a minute too, because I want to talk more about networking, but I wanted to hear a little bit from Abigail, how her interview process went also.
Yeah. So I'll say that the first thing to pay attention to is when the intern openings, when you can actually apply.
Good point.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think I applied very early on in the fall, so almost a full year ago now. And then it wasn't until about February that I actually was contacted about an interview. I only had one interview. It was with a research scientist at IBM, and it's actually someone I'm working with now. And then I think it was only about a week or less before I had an offer for the internship.
Okay, so you applied early, and then there was, a bunch of waiting for all the people that don't apply early, even though they should. And then you heard from one of the managers, you interviewed, and you got the offer shortly after that.
Correct.
Okay, cool.
Correct.
Now let's talk about something that you mentioned already that I think is maybe a little bit controversial, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word, but networking, I think people always say is so important, right? Like networking is how you get jobs, it's how you get opportunities. But I feel like that's where people sort of stop giving advice. They're like, you should network, but we never tell people how to network. And I don't know about you, but I've certainly witnessed a lot of people networking poorly. So do you guys have any advice for what you did when you were networking that worked?
Yes, and I totally agree with you about the point of, people just say you should network, but don't actually tell you how to network.
Right, or what that even means.
What that even means,
I think
right.
A lot of people think it means, messaging somebody on LinkedIn and asking for a job.
And I'm
they're
sure
like, I networked and it didn't work.
People probably do that all the time, don't they?
Yeah.
I've gotten a few of those too, and I just don't respond to them.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, so to answer your question, I think a good way to start networking, if you are kind of just starting out, don't really know anybody, is to try to get involved with the quantum computing community as much as you can. Mm-hmm. And so if you go to university right now, a great way that you can do that is join the quantum computing club at your university. And if that doesn't exist, you should start one, right? Because then you can start building that community, and then you'll start getting involved with all sorts of events and start meeting new people.
And you'll emerge as like a leader of your university because you started the club.
Certainly. Broadly, what's good in trying to develop yourself, understand your interests, and also network is just getting as many experiences as you can, in my opinion. So there's all sorts of hackathons all over the United States and all over the world that happen all the time, basically. And I would try to go to as many of those in person as you can, because there you're going to see industry leaders, you're going to see academia leaders, and you're also going to see other students who are interested in the same thing that you are. Beyond that, let's say your university is very small, maybe there's not a large quantum computing presence, maybe there's not even a physics club or anything like that. Try to reach out to professors maybe around the world and just ask to talk to them, right? Start understanding their perspective, start trying to get information from them so that they can help you kind of understand where you want to go with your career, understand what's possible in the field, and understand things that you can start to focus on.
I totally agree. And one thing that, for the listeners at home that might not know about Ari's not shy, but I don't think you have to be as extroverted as you are, Ari, in order to become good at networking. I think that's a misconception that a lot of people have. It's a skill, just like any other skill. Another question that I had for you, Abigail, is did you have to do that kind of networking and sort of putting yourself out there, maybe when you were even looking at grad school?
Oh, that's a good question. I think, yes, I did a little bit in grad school, and a lot of that was because I was trying to apply to schools where I didn't know anybody. I didn't have any connections there. So I did try to send some emails to professors, et cetera, to do that initial networking.
And I did that too when I was applying, for sure. Yeah. Just tons of, cold emails, as
But I do think that generally, like, my advice for networking would be to kind of lean on the network you already have, right? Whether that's professors who know you really well or peers that know you well and have connections elsewhere, just to open the door into your first experiences, and then your network just naturally grows from there.
Yeah. I think you want to make it feel not forced, if you can.
Completely.
Like, there are some programs that are set up to help younger students network with industry professionals, and I've joined, some of those, so it is a little bit more scripted and forced, but it's better, I feel like, when it's always organic, as much as you can make it.
And I think the way that you can make it organic is actually having a genuine interest in the topic or the person that you're talking to.
100%.
Right. I think one thing that I would tell students who would ask me, like, how to get research at your university is I would be like, okay, only try to join a lab that you actually care about their research, and then email the grad students and just ask them, can you please teach me and show me your research? I would love to learn. And if you go into it with that perspective of, I'm just here to learn, then it's going to be way more organic, and you're going to actually understand if what you're trying to get yourself into is something you actually want to do.
And it's so easy to tell when people reach out to you if they're genuinely interested in what you're doing or if they're just trying to get something for you. And the reason, this is the way you can tell. Could they have Googled your question? And if they can have Googled the question that they ask you, they're not really interested in the answer. They just want something for you. And, we all have made that mistake probably once or twice. It's not a sin or anything, but it doesn't make me want to, go the extra mile for you. But if you come and you ask something where you're like, I genuinely don't know the answer to this, I did some prior research and I'm curious and I don't know, that's a lot more interesting of a conversation, in my opinion. So you sort of answered this already, Ari, so I'm going to turn it back to Abigail. But what do you think you did, or you are still doing during your internship, that has made your internship successful?
I think one of the important things that has helped make it successful is just being able to work independently, to teach myself skills on a very short timeline, being able to effectively communicate research on a short timeline. That's also a really important skill that has been important to make this internship successful.
And I have to say, I think it really, it means everything, because I worked with a lot of interns, I've worked with a lot of professionals and students at this point, and you can immediately sort in your head the people that can explain what they're doing and the people that really can't. And it's not because they're not as smart or, they just aren't doing interesting work. But people who have honed those communication skills have set them up, I think, in a position to be a lot more successful.
Building off that, something that one of my mentors long ago had told me, and it stuck with me today, is he said, what good is all this science and engineering that you're doing if you cannot communicate it to the world?
I say that all the time.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
And I think that communication skills is, quite frankly, the most underrated skill for any scientist or engineer out there. And I think when you can develop your communication skills, that truly lets you stand out from the crowd. And ultimately, even if you don't want to stand out from the crowd, you just want to have a better impact on the world, being able to share what you have found and what you have learned to more people ultimately increases your impact of your work. So,
and this sort of leads into my next question, which is, how would you compare the research that you've done in industry at IBM versus research that you've done in academia?
There's a difference in kind of output, what's expected, and kind of what the final goals are, right? I think any company, right, they're trying to further their own goals, while in academia it's often the final goal is just publication and that's it. So there's a little bit more focus on, say, patenting, and just a focus on what IBM can do well and furthering those kind of avenues of research. Yeah.
But would you say, and I totally agree with everything that you guys said, obviously the mentality shifts a little bit. Do you think like what you do like on a day-to-day basis is drastically different, or would you say it's more or less kind of the same?
I would say in terms of the technical work, yes. However, when you start joining a company, there's other things that you have to do in that company.
That's true.
In terms of, bureaucracy, having meetings, understanding, how much something costs and being cognizant of that. Although there is that in academia as well, depending on what you do.
Some might even say more cognizant of how much things cost.
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
You sort of answered this already too, Ari, but how has the time that you spent at IBM sort of affected what you wanted to do after, well, for you, your PhD, and for you, your master's? But maybe we'll start with you first.
Sure. Yeah. So I think I did already say that part of my motivation for getting this internship at IBM was to get experience in industry. And part of that is to figure out exactly what I want to do after grad school. I hopefully,
the eternal question.
Yes. Running out of time now. I only have about a year left. I think it's been a really good summer, and I've really enjoyed my time. So I think it is solidifying my leaning towards industry. Nice. I'll say that.
I think that's a really important point, that you have to get experiences in order to understand what you want to do. Yeah, on paper, something can seem cool, or maybe you study it in the class and it seems cool, but until you actually ingrain yourself in industry or ingrain yourself in academia, you don't truly understand how you personally are going to like it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I actually started out in aerospace engineering, and it wasn't until I had internships in aerospace engineering that I decided that I ultimately wanted to study physics.
And I think I've spoken about this on the channel before too, but I wanted to be an astronomer, and then I did an internship in astronomy, and I was like, maybe not. Why did you decide to pursue a master's degree versus, you, Abigail, why did you decide to pursue a PhD?
Yeah, this is a good question, and I think something a little bit biased towards, obviously, because I did a master's degree. But I knew that, first and foremost, if I was working at a place like IBM, I knew that I would always continue to learn.
Yep.
And I know some friends who are engineers in industry, and they kind of sort of do the same thing day in and day out. And I knew I didn't want to work at a place like that. So the contingency of, me just finishing my master's was that I would work at a place like IBM where I would never stop learning, and I would always be challenged intellectually. So that was kind of the first and most important point. A PhD, what it gives you is a lot of depth. It gives you depth, and it allows you to keep challenging your mind and to learn something, right? But I found that I could get a similar experience if I chose wisely in where I worked in industry. And so for me, when I was analyzing what I wanted to do, the type of things that I wanted to do, I saw that hey, I didn't need a PhD to work on quantum control systems and that type of work, right? And so I saw an opportunity to kind of finish with my master's degree, jump right into industry and work on something that I was passionate about, and I knew I would never stop learning in that field, and I didn't have to pay those opportunity costs that comes with a PhD. But everyone's journey is different, I think, and for different people, it might make sense to get a PhD, like you, Abigail.
Yeah, so to talk a little bit about how I ended up here, I mentioned earlier that I actually started out in aerospace, so that was my primary undergraduate degree. Along the way, I took a few physics classes, realized that I really enjoyed physics, but I had no idea what you could do as a physicist other than teach high school physics.
That is a problem.
So I did decide to get a secondary major in physics along the way. So I have 2 bachelor's degrees. And by the end of those degrees, I had ultimately decided that I loved physics so much more than my engineering classes, so much more than my engineering experiences, because I was starting to do some physics research as well. And in physics, there really aren't standalone master's degrees. The only option if you want to go deeper is a PhD. So that was kind of the only decision I could make.
That was the position that I was in too. I knew I loved physics.
Right.
And I was like, I want to do more physics. That's a PhD.
Exactly.
I think ultimately what you want to do, though, and what you are doing totally requires a PhD level of education, right?
Right.
Whereas I think this is kind of a broad point that I think we like to make here at IBM, is that you don't necessarily have to have a PhD to contribute to quantum computing, and that there are many, many avenues to contribute to quantum computing, one of which being, broadly under the electrical engineering umbrella. And you don't just have to be somebody that knows electromagnetics really well or does RF and microwave engineering. You can be somebody that does computer architecture, somebody that does FPGA engineering, or you can be somebody that just writes software. Or you can produce videos, right? And be in the quantum space. There's so many different ways that you can get involved that don't necessarily require a PhD, don't necessarily require a master's degree, and don't necessarily require, anything to do with technology or engineering, right, to get involved in the space.
Yeah. All right, so last question I have for you guys is basically, are there any other fun or interesting aspects of your internship or your previous internship that you want to share?
I think one aspect of the internship that I've really appreciated is just the number of different research scientists I've been able to talk to and kind of consult as I navigate this project. I think I meet with 6 or 7 different research scientists every week.
Oh, wow.
And that's been great. I think often in internships, you really only interface with one mentor, and you're just kind of working independently during the summer or during your time. So it's been a nice change, and it's been really helpful in kind of just moving things along.
And that's probably because you have been so outgoing and trying to reach out to some of these people, right? And I think that's part of what makes a really good experience, is taking advantage of the wealth of knowledge that we have at IBM, or that there is at any organization that you're interning at. I mean, that's kind of the main goal of an internship. And I think, in my opinion, the criteria of success for an internship is how much do you learn, right? Because that's ultimately what's most valuable for you. And in my opinion, what's most valuable for a company is if you are learning tangible skills. And the way that you do that is not only doing really well in your project, but taking advantage of all the really smart intellectual people that work at that organization.
Yeah, and even some of the other interns too.
Of course.
Yeah. That's a really nice message. Maybe we should just end on that. Ari, Abigail, thank you again so much for coming down and talking to me. I think this conversation will hopefully help a whole lot of people who are interested in internships and, working in industry and maybe even graduate school in general. I think this chat will help a lot of people. Thank you. Absolutely.
Thank you, Olivia.
That was a really fun conversation with Abigail and Ari. I really enjoyed sitting down and learning from both of them more about their experiences at IBM and where they're going to go next in their careers. I'm certain both of their futures are super bright. If you're interested in an internship at IBM, the best thing you can do is follow on LinkedIn, IBM Quantum. That's where we post all of our updates, and we will be sharing our open internship application this fall. So it's coming pretty soon. Before I sign off, we actually have one more interview with a gentleman named Nathaniel, who has actually been our video intern for the past summer. So stick around and learn a little bit about what a somewhat non-standard internship at IBM Quantum can look like. Hi, Nathaniel. Thank you for joining me here today.
Yeah.
So you had a slightly different type of internship compared to our previous guests. Do you want to tell us about it?
Yeah, sure. So the internship was videography. So I'm editing videos for the Qiskit YouTube channel, which is definitely not a typical, research internship compared to the others.
You've been here for the whole length of the summer, just like all the other interns, though. Can you tell us about some of the stuff that you were working on?
So I edited some of the paper reviews and also worked on various client-side videos for the for various like quantum machine learning and other topics.
And you are a student at RPI.
Yeah, I'm going to my sophomore year and studying mechanical engineering and physics.
Cool.
And yeah, I helped run the quantum club there.
So it's kind of unusual, I feel like, that somebody with your background is also very knowledgeable about video editing. So maybe you can just back up a little bit and explain, how did this all come to be?
It's definitely an odd kind of turn of events to be here. Prior to joining, going to college, I basically was shooting a movie. I wrote it, directed it, shot it. I'm editing it now. It's nearly done. But that kind of gave me a lot of experience in terms of video editing side of work. And then when I went to school, I was like, well, I don't really want to go to school predominantly for film. So I'm going to go for engineering. Originally computer science, but now engineering and physics.
Tell us about how you discovered the internship at IBM.
There was like an event that that actually you were part of, I think.
Was it?
Yeah, I think John Watros was there and a couple other people. And then I got to like meet them and talk to various people, and they kind of introduced the concept more of quantum computing. And by that point, I'd already joined the quantum club. After that, I kind of got more heavily involved and started like helping to run the club. And then from there, I just saw like a LinkedIn post from you, and it was just like, video editing for the quantum team. I'm like, that's
no brainer.
No brainer. It's exactly my skill set at this exact moment. So
yep. So we interviewed Nathaniel. I think it was just 1 or 2 interviews. I can't remember exactly. Two. And yeah, it was a no-brainer for us too. We were like, this guy has the exact skill set that we're looking for, but it's cool that you understand quantum, and we've been talking about it a little bit too, and you just had the perfect mesh of skills for this role. So thank you for seeing my LinkedIn post and for joining us, this summer. I hope you had a great experience. I know all of the video guys loved having you here, and I just felt it was so appropriate that we had you wrap up this episode by talking a little bit about what your experience was like as a video intern.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I know, it's been very fun. I've gotten a bunch out of it. It's really nice to be able to work at like a larger company where your skill set actually is put to use for public-facing videos and stuff. It's like I'm not just making stuff for myself. Someone values your work in a field that's not expected to be valued in. Like you're not expecting that this random company is like, oh yeah, we have a whole video team dedicated to teaching people quantum computing.
Yeah, it's kind of unusual in that way.
Definitely.
Well, thank you again so much, Nathaniel. Not just for this short interview, for all of the hard work that you've done this summer.